So hello friends, today we are going to learn about basics of Terraform. So let's start with the structure of the Terraform. So whenever we write this code, in the Terraform when we are starting, first of all, the Terraform files, it is very just a simple text file with an extension .tf. So you don't need to worry about that. That is very much simple. Also, there's another type that is you can use tf.json for the persons who are very good at JSONs. They can utilize that here, but most of the time most of the people would be using 99% times main.tf or some .tf extensions. So let's start how. So this is written. So if you see, this is the basic structure of how do you write the each block. So first one here you can see this is the we have to define block type. So what kind of block you are going to add. So here you can see there are these many types of blocks. It can be a Terraform block, provider block, resource block, variable block, locals block, data block, module block, output block, provisioner block. So based on that you define here what kind of blocks are there, and then here can be a block label. So for suppose you are using a Azure RM provider, then it will contain two blocks. So this first block label would be a label that is given by Azure itself or Azure RM provider that has provided something like this. And the second would be a local block name. Like here it is written as an example. So here you can use anything like myrg or any that is for your local reference within the code. That's it. So and if you talk about that maybe variable block, so here it is resource block. If you talk about variables, then it will have only one block, because the variable you are defining and it will have a local argument only. So just a local block name you need to give. So depending upon that, these would have different things. So now moving on to, for example, now here inside the block, when we start it, these things are called argument, and then argument would have identifier, and then an expression. So what is identifier? So identifier would be a value that you need to pass, such as name and all those things that are predefined, and you need to pass those value to that. So that is called as expression. Sometimes this expression, why do we say expression not value? Because sometimes we are using it as a reference here, sometimes to reference some value from other resource block or variable block. So sometimes we need to add expression also here. So that is how it looks. So we'll go into more deep dive in the upcoming videos on this one. So if you see here, so this is how, like, identifier name and then expression, you can give a direct hard coder value or some expression to something like that var dot myrg name. So you can pass that myrg name in a variable. So that is how you will use. So come, let's go and check how do you get these values, or how do you look into the documentations now next. So now, so suppose you are going to use the Azure provider. So just search Azure RM Terraform in Google. So once you see this first tab, you hit enter, and you are able to reach here, Azure provider. So this is the how to use the provider. You need to mention it here like this, and you can go to the documentation. So as you can see, this is the latest version that is there. Let's go to documentation. For example, let's search resource group. Okay, so you see this is resource group. So here, okay, let's minimize this. So here you can see this is block type. If you see here, this is block label. So by the block label, like whatever resource you are going to create in Azure, you can search by that name and you will get the block name. So this is the block name you are getting here. And whenever you open the documentation, you will have the example use case, argument reference, attribute reference, timeouts, import. So we are going to see what this each one by one. So example use case, this will help you understand like how you are going to utilize, or how you are going to create that resource in Azure, or how do you write the code for Terraform. So this is an example use case. So sometimes you would be having there are two types of attributes that arguments that can be there in here. One is required one is optional. So most required one you need to pass as a mandatory, and optional you can skip, or if you want you can give like tags. So if you want to pass on tags you can pass it here, otherwise you can leave that. So this is the first argument of an attribute. So what is attribute? So this is attribute is something like once your resource is created, then you get some attributes that you can use to reference it onto some other places, like you want to use this particular RG, or you want to deploy a new subnet into this in this RG, then you can use this ID or the RG name. These attributes you can utilize to put that. And now moving on to timeouts, this is simple, just like eh, how much time it will consider before getting to a timeout. It means if you are trying to create some resource and it is not being created for 1 hour 30 minutes, then it will just leave that and read. If suppose you are using the data source block and it is trying to read some data from there and not able to read, maximum 5 minutes, otherwise it will uh, just leave that and say timeout. Same for update, from like you are making changes into the uh, RG or a particular block or a particular resource you are in the that is in the already in the portal, so you can just do that. So now talking about delete, suppose you are trying to delete the resource that is already there in the portal and that has been deployed using Terraform, and if it takes more than 1 hour 30 minutes, it's going to show you a timeout. So that is about the timeouts. Now the import thing. So basically we would be having in future separate lecture about this, but let me tell you what it is there. Suppose you are having a resource in the Azure that is not being deployed by Terraform. It has been deployed by maybe ARM template or directly using the mm, Azure portal. But now you want to manage it using the Terraform, then this Terraform import function could be really useful and you can utilize that. So that is about this. Let's meet in the next lecture and talk more.